This video is brought to you by Devout Decals, makers of reusable Catholic art for your home altar, your bedroom, and your home classroom.
I shouldn't take joy in what I'm reporting to you today because what I have to report are the consequences of Francis's satanic document allowing for the blessings of James Martin couples as couples. That document is nothing to cheer for, so I want to be clear that I'm enjoying watching some of the high-profile works that Francis has done in his alleged papacy come apart as a consequence of his attempting to even give the appearance that the Catholic Church is softening its stance on certain sins that the world has become enamored with. Here we are now, 3 weeks since that infernal document was issued, and we are still talking about it. And why? Not because there isn't anything else to talk about in the Church. Far from it. To be honest, the relentless live streaming that I've been doing here on this channel every day, in addition to traditionally formatted videos like this one, attest to all of that. There's a lot to talk about. No, we're still talking about this because this document might be the most consequential act Francis has done for the actual world. More consequential than Traditionis Custodes, more consequential than his undermining of religious orders, and yes, more consequential than his work with evil forces in the secular world because the work that he's done with them is going to fail. Their attempt to create a new way of running everything and every little detail of our lives is going to fail. Now, this document attempted to make normal sins that cry out to heaven for justice. A document like this is the first big step you would have to take if you were a religious leader trying to get your faith to change what it says about the sin in question. You soften things a little bit by wrapping things up in ambiguous language that allows people to read whatever they want to in the document. The aim is to hope that no one really notices what it really does except the fringe voices in the opposition, whom you can then just dismiss with a hand wave as being on the fringe. Except that's not what happened here. We all know by now about the increasing numbers of moderate bishops speaking out about this infernal document. But what no one was expecting was this story from Info Catholica, which comes with this headline. Metropolitan Hilarion. After Fiducia Supplicans, it is no longer possible to speak about reunification between Catholics and Orthodox. Francis just successfully destroyed decades of ecumenical dialogue between East and West that has characterized the post-conciliar period. Francis just ended all of it with the stroke of a single pen. Let's be honest about something here, though. Reunification between Catholics and Orthodox had a huge stumbling block in the post-conciliar era that a lot of Catholics who were hoping for reunification would not admit to. Orthodox bishops and theologians have all said that the Novus Ordo Missae, your ordinary form of the Mass that is at your typical parish, was a non-starter for them, that they don't see it as an apostolic liturgy. They think it's deficient in some way. Some have said it's even invalid. The mere presence of the Novus Ordo was going to stop reunification between the East and West. May as well just admit that here. But despite all of that, friendly relations between the conciliar church and the various Orthodox patriarchs continued since Vatican II. Now we'll see if the dialogue even continues because of this document. From the article, quote, the declaration Fiducia Supplicans that allowed the blessing of extramarital couples, the article's wording, not mine, breaks the possibilities of ecumenism with the Orthodox. The prefect of the dicastery for the doctrine of the faith himself, Cardinal Victor Manuel Tuco Fernandez, is trying to clarify that the document says what it does not say, in a display of voluntarism in the face of a text that is not at least ambiguous, if not blasphemous, as Cardinal Mueller has described it. It is enough to read Cardinal Fernandez's text without ideological prejudices, and this has been done by everyone, from the Jesuit close to Pope Francis, that'd be Pastor Jimmy Martin of the Jesuit Church, who already imparts publicized blessings, to the African bishops. According to Orthodox media reports, Metropolitan Hilarion stated that after the declaration Fiducia Supplicans on the blessing of these extramarital couples, it is no longer possible to speak of reunification between Catholics and Orthodox. Hilarion of Budapest stated in an interview with Rod Dreher, American writer and editor-in-chief of the American Conservative, and former Catholic, by the way, who has done work against the Catholic Church, publicly, that the Vatican document that allows the blessing of couples of the double S type makes it impossible to talk about a possible reunion between Catholics and Orthodox Christians. The interview was published on the Jesus Portal YouTube channel. When the journalist asked him if the Vatican document put an end to conversations between Catholics and Orthodox about the possibility of a reunion after the Great Schism of 1054, the bishop responded affirmatively. Quote, "If we are realistic, we can no longer expect future unity between Orthodox and Catholics. These measures will obviously not bring us closer, but will create new lines of separation," said the Metropolitan. End quote. Well done, Francis. Well done. For all his talk about unity, for all his talk against schismatic tendencies fueled by ideological thinking that replaces the gospel, for all of that stuff that he goes on and on and on about endlessly, Francis was himself the biggest instrument for widening the East-West schism in modern history. Nicely done, Francis. Nicely done. But why would the chances of reunification be, at least for the moment, impossible? Aside from the other errors of the post-conciliar era in Vatican II that Orthodox thinkers often very publicly cite, there's a more basic reason, and I'll let Cardinal Mueller explain it. In his statement of December 21st, issued a couple of days after the infernal document was released, Mueller said the following, quote, "The difficulty of blessing a union or couple is especially evident in the case of the James Martin sin. For in the Bible, a blessing has to do with the order that God has created, and that he has declared to be good. This order is based on the difference of the flesh of men and women, called to be one. Blessing a reality that is contrary to creation is not only impossible, it is blasphemy. Once again, it is not a question of blessing persons who, quote, live in a union that cannot be compared in any way to holy matrimony, see Fiducia Supplicans paragraph 30, but of blessing the very union that cannot be compared to holy matrimony. It is precisely for this purpose that a new kind of blessing is created, see Fiducia Supplicans paragraphs 7 and 12. In light of this, can a faithful Catholic accept the teaching of the document? Given the unity of deeds and words in the Christian faith, one can only accept that it is good to bless these unions, even in a pastoral way, if one believes that such unions are not objectively contrary to the law of God. It follows that as long as Pope Francis continues to affirm that James Martin pairings are always contrary to God's law, he is implicitly affirming that such blessings cannot be given. The teaching of the document is therefore self-contradictory and thus requires further clarification. The Church cannot celebrate one thing and teach another, because, as St. Ignatius of Antioch wrote, Christ was the teacher, quote, who spoke and it was done. See Ephesians chapter 15, verse 1. And one cannot separate his flesh from his word. End quote. The Orthodox understand that. I'm not saying that they're perfect theologically, far from it. In fact, just look at how they responded to papal definitions of papal infallibility or the dogmas surrounding Our Lady from the 19th and 20th centuries that are now dogmas, as just a couple of examples. But on this question of this particular sin, a teaching which no Christian tried to change at all until the past few years, they understand this, and it's become a gigantic barrier for them, a stumbling block, if you will, to use the language of Vatican II. So Francis, the undisputed king of ecumenical dialogue and accompanying leaders of other religions in their error, in the name of unity between people who are vaguely good in some undefined way, has just undone the work of his predecessors and himself on the topic of ecumenical relations. Again, well done, Francis. Well done. What do you think about this story? Let me know in the comments if you find this as sadly amusing as I do. And hit like and subscribe if you haven't. It does help. So does sharing this on social media. That helps too. And as always, pray for the Church. I'm Anthony Stine. Ave Maria.